The Sabres Scoop, hosted by Brandon, Jordan, and Tom, talking everything Sabres.
Welcome to Sabres Scoop, presented by the Hockey Writers, a once-a-week show covering all things Buffalo Sabres and NHL hockey. We thank you for joining us today, and to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes, be sure to subscribe to and like the show on YouTube, follow and share on Facebook, and catch the great hockey content at thehockeywriters.com and on our Twitter feed. You can find us at Sabres Scoop THW and everything else at The Hockey Writer.
All right, so we'll get into some more Sabres updates here and kind of discuss some of the recent happenings. So why don't we start off with something a few people have been wondering here. With the Sabres have lost 4 games in a row now, and they need all the help they can get right now. And so I think I want to start off here and talk about Casey Middlestadt has been a healthy scratch last 2 games. The game before that, Dylan Cozens was a healthy scratch. These are 2 young players who have honestly been having a positive impact on this team this season, especially Dylan Cozens. So the Sabres are obviously in a very, very bad spot right now. Last place in the NHL. Do you guys have any opinion on why Kruger might be scratching Cozens or Middlestadt? I know Cozens at the beginning of the season, Kruger was discussing he wanted to take him out a few games, throughout the season, play him on and off just to let him ease into this NHL. But he's adjusted very well. I think you guys can probably agree on that. A lot of people have been talking about this. Why take these guys out of the lineup when you're desperate for wins? I'll start with you, Jordan.
Well, why is a good question. Casey Middlestadt, I wrote in my 3 Sabres of the Month column, was actually my 3rd star of the month of the whole team. He had 2 points in 5 games. He was looking really good at 5v5 in terms of his Corsi for and against per 60 minutes. This is a player that should be playing every game for the Buffalo Sabres. He was the 8th overall pick for a reason, and he's starting to really settle in here in the Sabres lineup. I think he should be playing every night. And we're seeing him with Dylan Cozens. It's interesting that they're trusting him to play on the first line with Jack Eichel and Taylor Hall at certain points if they need a goal. You would think they would want that guy playing every game. Now, I understand why they maybe would have done it the first 10 games or so, but we're almost halfway through the season here, guys. We're actually at that point. He should be playing every game. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, no, it's scary to hear you say that we're almost at the halfway point of the season here, because the Sabres, like Tom, prefaced, 31st in the league, not where they want to be. You need guys like Cozens and Middlestadt there. Cozens, tonight, for what was a lifeless Sabres roster out there, Cozens looked like the only guy, and I've said this before, who wanted to be there, wanted to play, and wanted to make an impact. You saw it last game with the fight that he got into. We'll cover that game a little bit, as we get further here. Casey Middlestadt was a guy who hadn't been able to crack the lineup prior to this year. Started on the taxi squad, and when he was interviewed when he was getting into the Sabres lineup finally, talked about how he took for granted playing in the NHL in years prior. He was just biding his time in the AHL and really working on his game. And he said he wasn't going to take it for granted anymore, and it showed. He looked like he wanted to be there. And I thought he was a net positive for the Sabres in what has been a really bad year for them. Cozens and Middlestadt, like you guys said, they got to be in the lineup. And I totally disagree with Kruger that they need rest. They got young legs, young bodies. They can do it. So,
yeah, I completely agree. I don't understand this. And 4 losses in a row, if he's keeping Cozens and Middlestadt out going forward, assuming he still has his job going forward, I don't understand it. Some of these roster moves are very mind-boggling, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And you can say the same for the lack of, I guess, Kevin Adams as general manager, the lack of his wanting to do anything or even opening the possibility. Although we have heard, we can transition a little bit here. People like Elliot Friedman, who's talked a lot about, he's kind of kickstarted the Jack Eichel trade rumors, but he also said something interesting. He said that Brandon Montour was available for trade. And that's a guy that the Sabres just got a few seasons ago in a trade. They shipped out Brendan Gooley, who was actually just placed on waivers by Anaheim too. So who knows about that? But Brandon Montour, that's an interesting trade chip, because I feel like there's some trade capital to his name. Do you think that they could acquire a goaltender? Let's go back to Tom here.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised the Sabres haven't tried making a move yet. This Montour being on the trade block has been out for almost a week now, I would say. I think quite a few days now, and the Sabres keep losing, and we're not seeing any changes here. I think they have to make a move, and they have to do it now. Especially, I mean, I would target probably a goaltender at least as part of a deal. When we've seen Hutton and Johansson now, they're not winning the games. And you need, they might be all right in that, but they're not getting wins. And Olmark is going to be out probably for at least nearly a month now. So they have to trade. They have to do something. I don't know. What do you think they could target, Jordan?
Well, it's going to be interesting because Elliot Friedman had also reported that Jonas Johansson was also available for trade. So I could see him being in a package with Brandon Montour. And, there's obviously interesting scenarios here. There's the two goaltenders in Columbus with Korpisalo and Merzlikis. Maybe you try to get Korpisalo off there. I don't know if Columbus trades him, but, they haven't had the best start to the season. There's definitely some names out there that the Sabres should consider because Johansson, as we saw tonight, I know he had a .915 save percentage entering this game. It's not really, I don't know if he's an NHL caliber goaltender. We already have that question mark with Carter Hutton. So the Sabres just need some stability. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's been multiple times the last few games, we saw it again tonight, just saves that have to be made to keep the team in the game. Saves that aren't difficult. You've got Pajot on the Islanders, not tonight, but other nights. We've just seen him snipe the puck easily from the top of the circle and right past the goaltender, no screen. And it just seems to keep happening. We saw it last game against the Rangers. Chris Kreider was surprised he scored. It was on his face. He was like, that went in. And when the other team's doing that consistently, you got to get another goaltender here to help you through this. If you want any chance of sniffing the playoffs, even getting close to a playoff spot, I don't know what this team's doing right now. They have to make a move. This is not working. Their entire defensive corps has been totally blown out. Ristolainen is not playing the same since he got back from COVID. McCabe's out for the entire season. We've got Borgen still out. They have to do something. I don't know what's taken so long because they've needed to do something for quite a few weeks here. But we'll see if this develops into something.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about guys that might be going. Let's talk about a guy that could be staying. Taylor Hall says he maintains interest in remaining with the Sabres past this season. That comes today. Will he stay if Kruger's gone, though? We keep talking about this. Ralph Kruger, another loss on his resume. He could be gone in these next few days. And we do know that Taylor Hall, even dating back to his days with the Edmonton Oilers, loved this guy, loved being coached by him. What do you think, Tom? Do you think Taylor Hall will want to stay if Ralph Kruger's gone?
It's interesting. It's interesting this talk is even, again, I remember this came up, I don't know if it was last episode or a couple episodes ago when this talk originally became a thing about Hall potentially wanting to sign back with the Sabres, and it doesn't make sense to me. Why is this the talk right now? Shouldn't the focus be on trying to win right now and not as, like, do you want to sign back here? But I guess that's what's being talked about right now. And I think it's going to be interesting because he scored a goal tonight, which ended his 19-game goalless drought. But he's not playing like Taylor Hall this season. I don't know what the motivating factor is for him wanting to stay in Buffalo if he keeps playing like this, because we've seen him play much better on other teams. But if this is really the place he thinks he's going to turn into a star player. And I mean, this is a contract year. He signed a 1-year deal so he could come here, try to light it up with Jack Eichel in Buffalo and earn himself some big money. And it's not working so far. Through 21 games, 2 goals. I don't know. But again, you bring up the Kruger thing. This was Hall signing here had a huge part to do with Kruger was coaching Hall. They were together in Edmonton years ago. You saw the behind the scenes, Kruger talking to Hall on the phone. Would this impact Hall's decision if Kruger left? And I really don't know the answer to that. I don't know if Hall's assuming Kruger is gonna lose his job if this continues here. I don't know if that was really his number one driving factor, that it all depends on Kruger being here. And I don't know why it would, considering how the season's going. But I don't know how it's going to turn out. But I guess if the talk's out there, then he's obviously considering it. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can call Kruger a player's coach per se, but he's certainly a popular coach in the room. You've heard guys like, excuse me, like Jack Eichel, even particularly, who, really talked him up and said, oh, he's a great coach, has, great relationships with everybody. And, initially the fans could get behind that because, it was exciting to have somebody other than Phil Housley behind the bench. But, as it stands, I'm not sure how secure his job is. But as for Taylor Hall, does that impact his decision to stay or not? I think it likely does. He said the two biggest reasons, and we've covered it before, was that he could play with Eichel, and B, he could get coached by a guy that he really liked and had a good relationship with. The term and the money that we're seeing that, floated around or whatever that Hall could be signed to. If I don't know if Kruger's going to be there for that amount of time. I don't know if that would impact it, but like you said, I don't know what the incentive for Taylor Hall to stay here is past this season, but if he wants to, great. But if it's another 8 million, that's pretty pricey for 2 goals. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, it's really a confusing road ahead for the Sabres. This, I mean, that's been shared a ton on. I've seen it a ton on Twitter. This recording of Kevin Adams and Terry Pagula talking behind in the room about how signing Taylor Hall not only makes them a playoff contender, but they're a cup contender. And look where we are, 21 games into the season, last place in the league. So this signing obviously hasn't gone how the organization assumed it was going to go. And we'll go more into Ralph Kruger now, seeing as though they've lost 4 games in a row. This season is just becoming completely lost. 6 wins in 21 games. Do you think Kruger is on the hot seat right now? I'll go to you, Jordan.
I would hope he's on the hot seat. I think it's really hot, this seat. It's scorching hot, you have to imagine, with Ralph Kruger at this point. There's just a lot of decisions now. Like, you're seeing it. The lines are just being changed so much throughout the games. It doesn't really seem like there's a direction with this team anymore. And I'm just going to use the cliche. I think he's lost the room. I just don't think he really has control anymore. You're seeing it with the play with guys like Jack Eichel, they don't really seem that engaged in play anymore. Like that Dylan Cousins fight the other night, that was the first spark we saw in this team in like probably the whole season, really. And that was awesome to see, by the way. But yeah, he's got to be on the hot seat. I don't see how he's on this team past a few games if this continues to keep up like this. How about you, Brandon? What do you think?
Yeah, I would think that he's on the hot seat, but based on the press conference he had a few games ago, I think it was after they lost to the Devils last week. Somebody, I think it was Paul Hamilton, asked Kruger in the post-game presser, are you concerned about your job security? And Kruger said, no, of course not. And, it kind of scared me because I actually believed him when he said that. I really do think that the unwillingness of the general manager to speak out on any of the drama or the troubles that the team is having this season really says a lot about ownership being in his ear. I think it says a lot about his, he's not going to do anything. At least during the season. So I think Kruger should be on the hot seat. I think all the fans think he is. I just realistically, I don't know if anything's going to happen, which kind of scares me.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. It is really interesting. The general manager of this team isn't speaking up about what's going on. And you've got all these Sabres fans coming after Ralph Kruger. They want him off this team. They don't want this guy as the head coach anymore. And that's the general consensus here that I'm getting on Twitter. I don't see anyone talking good things about Kruger's lineup decisions. And there's times where it honestly looks, to me, it looks as if they're trying to lose with some of these decisions that he's making. And mentioning losing the room, this team doesn't look inspired at all. Dylan Cousins had that fight the other night, and that's the only time I've really seen this team kind of fired up. After that, I think some of the guys, at least for a few minutes afterwards, the Sabres were playing better there. They felt fired up, and then it died again. So I don't know what it's going to take for Ralph Kruger to keep his job at this point. This is straight downhill for the Sabres. With a roster like this, you should not be in last place in the league. You've got Eichel, Hall, Dahlin, like you've got an insane lineup here. Skinner still doesn't have a goal on the season, and Kruger's playing him. I know he hasn't gotten a goal on the season, but he's playing him at the bottom of the lineup with some of the least minutes among the Sabres players. This guy is better than that. Like, at least try him out for a game with some higher minutes. Try him in the top 6 for more than 30 minutes. Like, give this guy an opportunity. See if once he puts one puck in, if he can keep it going. I feel like he's not setting up players here to put them in the best position to succeed. You can look at it again with breaking up the Hall, Stahl, Cousins line. Why did you move Cousins down the lineup and put Okposo there? It doesn't make sense to me. That was a great line before. Why touch that? Why potentially ruin the confidence of this young player who's molding very well into the NHL level with Stahl, who I think one of the main reasons he was acquired here was to help mentor Cousins. They sit beside each other in the locker room. Why are you breaking that lineup? There's a lot of things that I question about Kruger's decisions. So I think he's on a, like Jordan said, a very, very hot seat right now. I don't see see how this can last much longer, but stubbornness of the organization, we'll see if they do anything. Yeah. Will the Sabres magically turn around and start stringing together a win streak here? I think that's probably very unlikely, but we'll have to see. I don't know what's happening. I don't think he's going to be here very long.
I mean, Jeff Skinner hit that post tonight, so he was close.
He did. Hits the post every night, it seems.
Story of his life this season. Yeah. All right. Well, let's reset the show here, shift gears a little bit. We're going to get into some talk about tonight's game and the Islanders. So you're watching Sabres Scoop presented by the Hockey Writers. Make sure to subscribe to and like the show on YouTube, follow and share on Facebook, and catch all the great hockey content on thehockeywriters.com and our Twitter feed. That's at Sabres Scoop THW. Jordan, you have somebody to introduce.
Yes, for this episode, we are joined by James Nichols, a New York Islanders writer for THW. He's also editor-in-chief of Isles Blog and co-host of the Nassau Men Hockey Podcast. You can find him on Twitter at James Nichols NYI. How are you doing tonight, James?
Doing well, fellas. How are you?
We're doing pretty good. I'm sure you're feeling pretty good as well after the New York Islanders 5-2 victory.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It was a pretty dominant performance by the Islanders. I can't even lie.
Yeah, seems like the Sabres get dominated every night, so we're used to this.
Yeah, I'll throw this stat at you. Eichel, Hall, and Skinner 4 goals on the year. Matt Martin 4 goals on the year. That says a lot right there, you know.
I mean, Martin had as many goals tonight as Eichel has on the season, so.
So I know it's crazy, Matt. Oh, sorry.
No. You go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Matt Martin, it's his first 2-goal game since 2014. He's really become a Sabres killer this season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he played a good game. You know, he gained some confidence after that first goal, which he seemingly tried to do on purpose. You know, he said in a post-game interview, he's like, I just took a shot from behind the net and happened to go in. So gained some confidence after that, and he made a good play in the third period, drove to the net and buried his own rebound.
Yeah, it was another interesting game for the Sabres here. I mean, shots 45-18 in favor of the Islanders. This was not a great performance by the Sabres yet again. This is their 4th loss in a row. The Islanders are up there right near the top of the division now, so their odds are looking good right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about the Islanders is, you know, they've remained unchanged for a while, right? A few minor additions or subtractions here and there, but you know, for the core, for the most part, they've been together for almost 3 seasons now. So, you know, whereas, you know, you have a Sabres team who's got a couple new parts this season, the Islanders have been together for, you know, 2.5 seasons at this point, and they're, you know, picking up from where they left off last season. So they're really starting to gel. Some of their players are really starting to come into their own and grow. You know, you see Matt Barzal has reached another level this season. They got kids like Noah Dobson and Oliver Wahlstrom stepping up. So there's a difference right now between the Sabres and the Islanders, where the Islanders are on an upward trajectory. And the Sabres are suffering a little bit from, you know, an awkward year. You know, no preseason, no short training camp. Maybe that has a lot to do with it. So, we'll see what happens with the Sabres. A lot of alarms going off, and I understand it. But I don't know how much you can take out of this year it's sort of a fluky season.
Oh, yeah, of course. And you talk about some of the young players on the Islanders stepping up. Let's get into that Islanders third line of Dalcal, Pajot, Wallstrom. It's been very good for that team. Is this the third line you would go with for the rest of the season, James?
Yeah, if they could stay healthy. Pajot is the driving force of that line. Obviously, he does everything. He's a Swiss Army knife, kills penalties, works on the power play. And at 5-on-5, he's exceptional. He gets the puck out of his own zone into the offensive zone. And he's just really good to pair with a guy like Wallstrom, who's, new to the league and he's coming into his own. He can feed well. He can also score. And I've said for, the majority of this season now on Michael Dalcol, when he's healthy and he's in, he's doing his job. He's doing a good job at his role, which is really just to be, a checker on that line and to get the puck out of his own zone. His first game of the season, he had a pair of assists, and you thought maybe he will find his offensive touch. But I think the expectation for Dalcol is to be the 5th overall draft pick that he was drafted to be, and that's just not his role, right? Some guys are drafted a little higher than they should have been, and maybe they didn't utilize him the way he should have been when they first drafted him. But he's adjusted to the NHL well, and now he's learning his new role, which is really to just make sure he can get the puck out of the defensive zone and not be a liability on the ice, and he's doing that just fine.
So, yeah, there's some other notes from tonight's game on the Sabres end. I don't know if you noticed this, James, but Rasmus Dahlin and Rasmus Ristolainen, the Sabres D pairing, they were on the ice for all 5 goals against that the Islanders scored. Of course, Risto put the puck in for a goal, but that doesn't really offset in a 5-2 loss. Going into this game, were there any players that you were worried about? Were you saying, okay, maybe the Sabres are going to put something together? We can't give them power plays. We can't give them let their strong point shooters get it. Or was it just sort of like a walk in the park for you in your eyes? Like, what did you think going into the game?
I wouldn't say it's a walk in the park. No game is in the NHL. Whether you're playing the Sabres, you're playing the Red Wings, the Senators. Look at the Blackhawks this year. Nobody expected them to do anything, and they're sitting at 10th overall in the league and at the top of their division. So I wouldn't say any game is a walk in the park. You do, though, hope that when you see a team like the Sabres coming into town and they're at the bottom of the league or the bottom of the division, that you take advantage of a team like that. So I could tell you one thing I was worried about was Jeff Skinner, because the Islanders are notorious for breaking goalless streaks and allowing guys to get the monkey off of their back. So coming into this game, I was like, this could be the one for Jeff Skinner. And sure enough, he hits the post. He was a little bit unlucky, but again, the Islanders are a little notorious for giving up things like that. But you always have to be worried about Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel is probably in my top 5 players in the league right now. Give or take. And as far as that D pairing, it's just maybe it's just not clicking right now with Ristolainen and Dahlin. It's not really clicking with anybody on the Sabres right now, but Dahlin is still early in his career. Ristolainen is probably playing very frustrated. Everybody's probably gripping their sticks a little bit tighter. There's probably some tension in that locker room. So you have to think that at some point things are going to turn for the Sabres. I don't know when that will be. I know there's rumors of all these things that might be going on with the organization. But again, I said at the beginning of this year, whatever happens this year, it's a fluky, weird season. And my expectation for the Islanders was that, they could take advantage. But if they didn't take advantage and other, top teams don't take advantage of this weird year, you have to really just see how they rebound the following season.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I mean, this will probably be our last note on the game recap. But the New York Islanders, they went 0 for 3 on the power play, but they were generating a lot of chances. They were really taking advantage of the inefficiencies of the Sabres penalty kill unit. They weren't being aggressive enough, and they almost capitalized a few times. So we obviously see that with the Anders Lee net front presence. They really like Rejuvenez. I mean, that's been a criticism of theirs before, having a poor power play unit. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on how they're performing so far on the power play.
Yeah, the power play's been really good. It feels weird for me to even say that because I haven't been able to say that for a couple of years now. But the past few seasons, and this was even probably last year, in Trotz's second year, it was just a stagnant power play. Nobody was moving their feet. Nobody was creating opportunities in front of the net. Anders Lee is probably the best net front presence in my mind. And I hadn't seen him park himself in front of the goaltender and just wait for a shot to come his way to deflect. He's starting to do that this year. Oliver Wahlstrom on that second unit has completely changed the dynamic of the second unit power play because he's parking himself in Ovi's office and the defenders are noticing and they're gravitating more towards his side of the ice. And if he can get the shot off, it's a really good shot. He has a very, very strong shot. And if he doesn't get the shot off, he has the hockey IQ to pass it off to, someone else who's open and create another opportunity elsewhere. So he's been a key addition. Noah Dobson has also been doing really well, coming into almost the Islanders power play quarterback role. And yeah, they're doing a lot more movement of the puck. They're doing a lot more movement of their bodies. Whereas the past couple of seasons, it's just been really stagnant. They've been, standing in one spot and just looking to make the perfect pass and thread a needle.
And so you mentioned Noah Dobson there. So he's 9 points on the season now, 23 games played. He had a goal tonight. What do you think his potential is as a defenseman on this team?
Yeah, for a long time, people have been saying that he fell in the draft because they didn't see his potential being that of an elite defenseman in the NHL. And I can tell you right now, I think that's completely changed at this point. He has unreal hockey IQ. He has a great two-way ability. He's not a liability in his own end. He's actually very good in his own end. And you're starting to see that offensive prowess come to his game now as well. So I think he's progressed really well. I think there was a reason they didn't, send him back to juniors last year. He had nothing left to prove. They trusted him in 34 games. They didn't give him a full-time role, but I think it was perfect for him. He got groomed by Dennis Seidenberg, Johnny Boychuk, Andy Green, some really great mentors in the NHL. And he's just really learned how to become a two-way defenseman. He's got a really good offensive side of him. And I think that he's superb in his own end. So at just 20 years old, he can only go up from here. And I think that he'll be an elite defender sooner than later. Yeah,
that's really good to hear. I'm just thinking about the Sabres in comparison. They've got some young guys who need to step up for them here. Half the Sabres defense has been out this season, so having guys like Noah Dobson and young defenders that can come in and play well. I mean, it usually takes a few years for defensemen to actually develop into solid NHL players. We're seeing Dahlin still isn't even doing what he's fully capable of yet. So when a player develops like that for you that quickly and can start putting up points and playing solid game, that's huge.
Yeah, and I think he's got the perfect mentor, aside from the players that I mentioned in Barry Trotz, right? I don't know that there's a better defensive coach in the league. And Trotz just knows how to get the most out of his players, and he's doing that with Dobson and throughout the rest of the Islanders lineup.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, goaltending has been such a plus for the Islanders these past few seasons. And it's that way again. Elias Sarokin got his sixth start of the season tonight. How would you say he's adjusting to the NHL so far?
Yeah, it's been good. His first two starts were shaky. The first one was a surprise. The second one wasn't. But it took a little bit of time to adjust. It was a long off season for him. He had a couple extra months off from the rest of the squad because he had come over from the KHL and he wasn't allowed to play. So he was just doing a lot of practicing. But I think it benefited him in the long run because he was working with Mitch Korn and Pierre Greco, the quote unquote goalie gurus. So I think Varlamov's been an unreal mentor to Ilya Sorokin. So it took him a little bit of time to get adjusted to the size of the rink and the North American game. But now you're really starting to see that athleticism come out in him. He's really calm in the crease. And, you saw him learn from those first two losses where he gave up 4 to 5 goals each. He was kind of deep in his crease and playing in the net, and now you're starting to see a little bit more of an aggressive Sorokin. He's above the crease, he's further out in his net, and he's making some really good saves, and the athleticism is just really off the charts. He makes some saves that I don't know that even Varlamov would have made. And maybe that just means he was out of position, but the athleticism made up for it. And he makes a split save, a diving save, and he looks really good.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you mentioned Varlamov. What type of role do you think he's going to play here? He's really fitting well into this Islanders defensive system, putting up really great numbers in terms of save percentage, goals saved above expected. Do you think he's going to be the starter still heading into the playoffs, or do you think Sorokin could potentially challenge him in that regard?
Yeah, it's Sorokin's net. It's going to be a 60-40, 70-30 split in Varlamov's favor moving forward. It was pretty much 90-10 to start the year. I don't know how much Trotz really trusted Sorokin. He probably wanted to get him acclimated a little bit slower. But a couple nights ago, you saw Varlamov looking like he probably needed a rest. He didn't have his best night. He squeaked out a win, but you saw he was a little bit tired. Sorokin comes in the next night and puts up a goose egg and shows to Trotz that he can be trusted. So it's gonna be a split in Varlamov's favor. It's gonna be his net until it's not anymore, and that'll be on his own merit. He'll have to play his way out of the starting equation rather than Sorokin beating him to it.
James, this Islanders team, just notched their 30th point in the standings with the 2 points from the win tonight. That's good enough for second in the East Division. They're actually tied in points with the first place Capitals, but the Caps have that game in hand. You mentioned expectations for the Islanders, and you keep saying it's a fluky season, but that's a great place to be. Do you think that this is where they're going to finish this season? And if so, if they finish in the top 1-2 of the division, does that do you, in your mind, is this team a cup contender? And what are their biggest roadblocks to a deep playoff run that they haven't had in a number of years?
Yeah, I think that they could stick to the top of the East Division. I had actually predicted them to win the East after Boston took a big hit on their blue line. I know Zdeno Chara is upwards of 41, 42 years old, and they lost Torrey Krug as well. But those are some pretty big pieces that they lost. So after they lost those guys, I didn't see them as the big juggernauts of the East Division. The Capitals are another team who I thought they're a little bit older, and I'm they're doing real well right now. They're in first place. We're tied with points and everything, but I wasn't sure if they can sustain the level of play that they had, when they went to the cup and they won the cup. However, I think that the Islanders will stick around in the top 4, probably closer to the top 2, so long as they stay healthy and they stay consistent with their play. We've seen what they can do when they're unhealthy, and guys like Adam Pelech or Casey Cizikas go down, they pretty much sit around subpar 500 hockey. But if they stay healthy, no reason why they shouldn't stay towards the top of the division. As far as a weakness on the team, I had a discussion with somebody this morning via Twitter about their blue line. Nobody on that blue line has gotten a day off yet. Their top 6 is pretty much what it is right now, and it's a great top 6. I'd put that on any roster and feel confident in that defense. However, the first person who gets hurt, right after that person gets hurt, it's pretty thin afterwards. The 7th defenseman is a toss-up between Sebastian Aho, who hasn't played in 2.5 seasons at the NHL level, and Thomas Hickey, who has missed about 1.5 years of NHL time as well. So the defense is a little thin after Andy Green, after Noah Dobson, and anybody else in the top 6. So I would say that's probably their weakest point right now. And if you asked me that last year, I probably would have said it was scoring, but they're seemingly doing that at will right now with the biggest goal differential in the East Division.
For sure.
I'll just throw a question in here, throw some more Sabres talk. From your point of view, what do you think of Ralph Kruger, if you have any opinion on this, and where do you think the Sabres are going to end up in this East Division? Do you think they stay at the bottom, or you think this season's somewhat redeemable? Can they move up a bit on the table? They've got Eichel, Hall, Dahlin, Skinner still hasn't scored yet. It seems like a cursed team right now. Do you think there's any coming back for the Sabres?
I won't say it's impossible. We saw that the Blues do it, 2 years ago. They came from the bottom and they rose all the way to the top. They took the ultimate prize home. But it's going to be tough. They have the talent. Hall is there. Eichel is there. Skinner's there. I really like Sam Reinhart. I think Ristolainen is a very good defenseman. I think Dahlin has a lot of potential to be a very good defenseman as well. They have all the pieces. Goaltending is a little shaky, but Ullmark has been good this year. So I wouldn't say that they can't do it. Do I think it's likely? Not at this point. And listening to a couple of points you had prior to me coming on the show earlier today, I heard you talking about Eric Stahl's role and Dylan Cousins' role and some of the kids. And I agreed with you, actually. I would like to see maybe Dylan Cousins get some top 6 minutes. He's sitting down in the bottom 6, but he's being mentored by Eric Stahl. So maybe they should play on a line together. And at this point, why not? Right? They're not really doing too much to improve themselves right now. Jeff Skinner's not even being put in a position to be able to score. So, of course he's sitting down at the bottom of the score sheet with 0 goals. So maybe mix up the lines a little bit. I know they really like Olofsson and Reinhart up there with Eichel. That's great, but why not put some of your younger guys with a little more talent in the top 6, like Skinner and like Cousins, see what they can do with Eric Stahl. Maybe a shakeup is what they need.
Yeah, Cousins was playing with Hall and Stahl. We were talking about this before too. Hall, Stahl, and Cousins was a line, and I don't we don't know why that got broken up. It was a great line, and now they put Okposo there in place of Cousins, and it's kind of confusing because Cousins has adjusted well to the NHL. He's really, like we were saying, one of the guys who looks the most inspired, like has the most drive to win here. So it's really interesting that they've decided to move him down here, and I personally don't understand it. And yeah,
I think Cousins is going to be a really good player, and I think the only way that these guys have opportunities to learn and to grow is to play the game, right? So I'm not too sure why he's not getting some more minutes here, but you see guys like Oliver Wahlstrom on the flip side doing contributing to a team with limited minutes. Oliver Wahlstrom is really not averaging any more than 10.5 minutes a night. But again, it's really all just about being put in a position to produce. And if you're not, then you got to, maybe start to turn to the coach and start questioning some of his methods.
Mm-hmm. I'll just ask you one more thing just before we wrap up here. I've started running some polls on Twitter for fun, just to get some opinions from Sabres fans. And before tonight's game, I asked Sabres fans, how many games do you think the Sabres are winning in this 3-game matchup against the Islanders? And the overwhelming majority said 0. So what do you think is the outcome of this series? Do the Islanders sweep this? Do the Sabres get a win in here? What do you think?
I said, on my show this week, there's no reason why the Islanders can't come out of this week with 8 points in hand. So I think that they should sweep this. I think, when a team is toiling as much as the Sabres are right now, when you're one of the top teams in the division, you want to make sure that you do justice to the teams at the bottom of the league, right? You got to make sure that you're taking advantage of those games, and the best teams in the league do that, right? They collect points when they're supposed to collect points. So you have to take advantage of teams like the Sabres and the Devils right now. You have to collect those points as much as possible because when you're playing Pittsburgh or you're playing Philadelphia or Washington, those games are going to be tough, and you need as many points as you can to solidify your spot in the division.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll unless anyone has anything else to discuss, I think we can wrap it up. Any other pointers you guys want to add?
Here, I'll just say one more thing. Do you ever hope Sebastian Aho fights Sebastian Aho on the Carolina Hurricanes?
It's definitely would be an interesting bout. I don't really know who would win that because I've never seen either of them fight. But we all know which Aho would win in a scoring race.
Oh yeah, totally.
We almost had a fight tonight. It was Miller and
Miller and Lee, yeah, and
Lee.
also Miller and Wallstrom. He was looking for it tonight.
Yeah, at the end of the first.
Montour and Wallstrom. I don't know why Montour didn't just go for it, but it looked like he was the one saying no.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I think the Sabres need to show more fight, but we'll see if they do so in the rest of the series. So we'll wrap it up now. So we want to thank you for joining us. This has been Sabres Scoop, presented by the Hockey Writers. You can make sure to subscribe to our show. We're on YouTube and Facebook, the Hockey Writers, and you can follow our Twitter at Sabres Scoop THW on Twitter. We'd also like to thank James Nichols for joining us this time around, and you can make sure to follow him on Twitter at James Nichols NYI. Don't miss all the great content. Don't miss all the great hockey content on thehockeywriters.com. For Brandon and Jordan, this is Tom, and this has been the Sabres Scoop. Until next time.